War is a devastating but real part of life that affects millions of people around the world. We see the explosions and troops on TV. War leaves behind scarred earth and communities left to pick up the pieces, trying to rebuild the life they once knew. And in some cases, using the remnants of war to do just that.
My name is Mark Watson. I'm a professional photographer based in Littleton, New Zealand. This image was taken in the Southeast Asian country of Laos in Khammouane province.
Mark was in Laos during an epic bike tour of Asia, starting in China and riding 13,000 kilometers to Indonesia, a trip that lasted 9 months.
Our route took us through China, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia and Indonesia. We chose to keep our trip to rural areas mostly and in the mountains and high country as much as possible. I find it fascinating to see how people live in remote places.
But it was after entering Laos that Mark discovered a new fascination.
I became curious about the war scrap everywhere: shrapnel, bomb casings, cylinders from cluster bombs, and the long-range fuel canisters. During the years 1953 to 1975, a fierce civil war was fought in Laos. In many ways, this conflict was overshadowed by the war in neighbouring Vietnam because both the American and Vietnamese governments denied their involvement in it. From 1964 to 1973, the US dropped more than 2 million tonnes of ordnance on Laos during 580,000 bombing missions. That's equal to a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day for 9 years. This makes Laos the most heavily bombed country per capita in history.
But it wasn't the military history Mark was interested in. It was what happened after the bombs ceased and the troops returned home.
Up to a third of the bombs dropped did not explode, leaving Laos contaminated with vast quantities of unexploded ordnance. Scrap from such widespread bombing has been utilised in people's homes and villages for everything from house foundations to planter boxes to buckets, cups and cowbells. This photo is of local canoes that have been fabricated from war scrap. I recognise them to have been made from the discarded long-range fuel tanks from American bombers.
It's a resourceful way to deal with something that caused so much tragedy. But unfortunately, some tragedies continue.
Over 20,000 people have been killed or injured by unexploded ordnance in Laos since the bombing ceased. To this day, these munitions are still scattered throughout the countryside and are frequently found and often accidentally detonated. It has also created a scrap metal industry, which is now shrinking, but has been responsible for many deaths as poor villagers recover and exchange this dangerous resource for money.
Today, there are a number of NGOs working to clear Laos of these mines and bombs, but at the current rate, it could take more than 100 years to clear them all. In the meantime, people here are going to have to continue to live alongside these deadly relics of war. Photography undoubtedly has the power to change the way we feel about many things, including our ideas on war. Check out this episode next on how photographers on the front lines are doing just this.
When people started to photograph war, these images helped bring the realism and the horror of it to the world, to people living far away from the conflict.
And as always, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.